you talked to Fabio about his dad a lot, and how you were able to break down if there were any barriers in communication and get them to really open up to you and treat you like maybe one of their mates, because that's what it seemed like. It seemed like you were very involved, and it was just, how they were living, and they seemed very comfortable with the cameras around.
They need to, and that's why we spent endless, days just hanging out and not even filming anything, because I think key part of the process is making sure they trust you and welcoming you into their lives, right, and what they do. Some of my favorite scenes are the more verite type scenes where there's just a camera and the kids are playing, right, and having conversations as though we're not even there. And to get to that stage, that you need to just, make sure they trust you and hang out and make sure that they believe that you're doing something that's, genuine and honest. And I guess, it took us a little bit of time to get to that stage, but we did eventually, and it was through just sheer hanging out and putting in the time. And that's probably why the project took so long, I guess. You can't do that in a couple of, production trips out of here and get it over. There's no way. You might be able to make something that's vaguely superficial, but if you actually want to tell a story that's honest and genuine, you spend the time. So I think there's no easy way, there's no easy answer to that question. We had to work hard and spend a lot of time on it.
You mentioned talking about producing something honest and something, that seemed like it had quite a lot of integrity, but I was wondering if at any point you felt a little bit like the superstar guy who flew in and, did you ever struggle or grapple with justifying something that was so intrusive? I mean, was it that, well, I have good motivation, that's, it's not for money, it's not for this, or it was for money, but it was also for this. Did you ever struggle with that at all?
I think there were creative choices that we had to make and that we had to think hard about them. Yeah, sure. I mean, not every single scene that you choose to either edit out or keep in is the product of you thinking hard about whether you want to keep it in and why, and are you keeping it in for the right reasons or not. So yeah, I think there is quite a bit of that. But I saw it as a natural sort of a part of the process as well. And there were things that there was some stuff that we didn't include, that we found out about, their lives that we didn't think we would like to keep in. Yeah, I mean, that is part of the process. It was definitely part of the process.
Why did you live when you filming and how did you find it?
Very fun. So we lived, my uncle has a place in Copacabana, so we were crashing there for a lot of our production trips. Justin spent quite a bit of time in the favela as well, at Rogerio's house. And towards the end, we got a little bit of money, and we stayed in a hotel for the last couple of production trips. The justification for it was that because of all the equipment's quite heavy, and if we weren't near the beach and as close as possible to the favela, that would be handy, because it was a fundamental just the two of us. So yes, 3 locations: my uncle's apartment, the favela, and a hotel. Funding came via us. We put in money, Justin and myself, and eventually Sundance Channel came on board with money, plus various other producers which came on board along the way. But we only managed to get funding after we'd started making the film effectively. There was no money when we first went down to shoot. It was 0 money, apart from our own money. And the first probably 5 or 6 trips were self-funded until we managed to get people on board to help out.
What was your experience like working in the favelas? Were you very, were things like that they were talking about in the film, like shootouts, quite obvious to you?
Yeah, it was always quite scary. Every time we went out was, I was worried.
Did you attract a lot of attention with your cameras and?
We were as discreet as we could have been, because it was only a couple of people. It's first me and Justin, and me, Justin, and a sound guy. Always with Rogerio or Chiola, who are our way in effectively, because they're super respected and and have run surf club for a long, long time, and they have respect of the community. So we were hanging out with them, and going in with them. So it was actually, safe, but, it's not an environment that you're familiar with, that you're used to, and therefore, obviously, it's always a bit part of it. But, it's not, it's fine. I think it was fine. And I think it's important to add that the favela right now, Cantagalo, is quite different from when we shot. The police have moved in the pacifying units, as they're called, Policia Pacificadora, and there is no, at the moment, there's no drug trade and no drug trafficking at Cantagalo, so it's being quote-unquote cleaned up. No one knows where the guys are going to, but right now there's no drug trade taking place, and it's quite a safe place. And so when you guys go down, you should go check it out. Go visit the surf club, the all new surf club that's since been refurbished and stuff. So I think, so things are changing, and whether the underlying problems and issues that have to do with the drug trade are being tackled appropriately, who knows? But at least the police have moved in, and it's a safer place for the people who live there.
My question was exactly the same.
Okay, cool.
On quite a similar note, you mentioned in the film a couple of times there was a sort of background of there being the gangs there and they were constant presence. Did you have any interactions with them?
Yeah.
And how did they go? Did you have to sort of get their permission or was that?
The permission from Rosario, we got the okay from the guys for us to go out. But they're always there in the background. You just put the camera down at the right time and the right place. Rosario will tell us, put the camera down, and one guy came running after me to stop me from going out because he didn't see Rosario had gone out. And, these guys are heavily armed, so he was a bit freaked out and stuff. But it was, I don't want to hype up like the fear and the violence. It was okay to go up, and hopefully you guys agree it's not that kind of film as well. So it's part of the background, it's there, there's an element of tension, but there's also sort of multiple other things taking place, which are just about, people going about their daily lives and stuff.
Obviously you know these children quite well now. Did you find that there was any kind of playing up to the camera, and that they were kind of different off,
Maybe at first, yeah, you were quite excited about it. But certainly not, like the cool dirty type scenes. That's just, we're not, it's not like, it's like we're not even there, right? And I think there was an excitement about us being there, but, a couple of days in, it's just kind of like, okay, that's just in, whatever, let's go surfing. So yeah, maybe at first, but over time, and I think that's why over time there was less recognition.
have they seen it?
Yes, the very first screening was a screening that took place at the surf club in the favela before the opening night of the Rio Film Festival. So they were the first people to see it.
Did they like it?
I think they did, yeah. I think there was a little bit of tension between Fabio and Amand because they were like not friends at the time, effectively. It's just like your kids, you're growing up, there's conflict, friendships are created, but also end along the way or whatever. At the time, they weren't very close, but the circle of guys, Rosario, is certainly much.
I was really interested by Pikachu.
Oh yeah.
I was wondering if you had any more information on what happened to him, what he's doing now.
Pikachu's like a legend. He's the best surfer in the favela now. He's super committed, super talented, and he was meant to be the star of the film. We spent like a whole week, I think, following Pikachu around and trying to get him to tell us the story. He was fine, he wasn't really working. So, but it was interesting that Charlotte told us, no, this is the guy, Pikachu. He's gonna be like the best surfer out of everyone, and he was right because he's done. He's competing. Doing super well. And Simão Romão, that guy was a pro surfer and came out of a similar neighborhood. It's kind of like looking after Pikachu and almost like being his coach and stuff. So.
You said you only met the kids for about 2 years in the course of the production. So, was there a time before you met them that you thought that the project wasn't going to happen?
Yeah, every time we come back, we'd be like, we've got nothing.
How did you
What are we doing?
How did you
What are we-
overcome that?
Yeah, we're like, what are we doing here? There's no story, there's no, maybe we can put together 15 minutes on the surf club or whatever, but not. I guess we just believed that we would find something eventually. I think it worked, but it could have easily not worked. You know, there's a huge risk attached to it, I think. But thankfully, Father and I were there, and we took us on that journey. It was pretty, you know, I think we were very fortunate to have come across them, and we were very generous with their time. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, because it was changed so much in the last couple of years that if you went back now, would you go to make the same film?
I think the problems that you see in the film are still there. So that particular neighborhood has been, is free of the drug trade and the issues that come with it. But, you know, but neighborhoods farther away from the beach are still faced with those issues every day, right? I think that the country is changing, and the economic disparities that are responsible for the problems you see at Camberwell are less. You know, I think statistics suggest 30 million people have been lifted out of poverty, right? So that's got to have an impact on day-to-day life and stuff. But I think that what you see, the favela is the byproduct of, I guess, 500 years of, you know, issues and mismanagement and slavery and exploitation and a variety of things that have had an impact and created the type of environment that we see in the film. So it's not going to change overnight, but the signs are very encouraging, and the country is changing and changing for the better. It's change. I guess it's capitalism-led change. There's a new middle class, which means there's a ton more consumers out there. So people's material existence has improved significantly, which can only be a great thing. But whether that's compatible with environmental issues and the future, who knows? But it's certainly moving in the right direction. Long term, I don't know.
Sport sometimes is quite a controversial topic in underprivileged communities like that and stuff because of like the margins of who makes and who doesn't. And were you ever, like, I don't want to sound like I said too much, but like, were you ever conscious of not overemphasizing commitment to sport because the balance of school is quite important as well?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, right? Because you don't want to romanticize the impact of surfing, and surfing's going to change everyone's lives. That's kind of like, you know, that's not realistic, really. So yeah, I think that was a concern. Whether we found the right balance, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you know, films such as ours and others out there tend to put so much emphasis on sport and its transformational powers, which I think is, you know, it's an exaggeration. And I think, like, so that's why the surf club is far more important as just a cultural sporting institution where people can come to and hang out and you know, to do something that's healthy and cool, as opposed to, you know, individually becoming a great surfer and making it out of your own. You know. I mean, that's part of the narrative and one of the themes is what we want. But I think realistically, the impact of the club itself on all the kids is more important than one kid individually doing well as a career.
What's your reaction to the end product of the film? Are you satisfied? Are you happy? Are there things that you still want to tweak and
I don't
change?
think you're ever happy with it, which is a shame, right? So there's times when I like it a lot, other times like, oh, I should have changed this or taken that out. But as I was telling the guys earlier, at some point you got to let it go, and we had deadlines as well that we were dealing with. Sorry, that we could have kept editing for another 6 months probably. Come up with a product that was slightly different, but not fundamentally different. So yeah, you could always tweak forever, I guess. And sometimes I like it, sometimes I wish I'd done one or two things different.
Well, I personally really enjoyed it.
Well,
Thank you.
Had you not been ripping in yourself, and you can speak Portuguese, would that have been a huge problem? Like, what was their level of English like?
None. You couldn't speak any English. So yeah, no, you have to speak Portuguese to be able to make that film. Yeah, it's a prerequisite. And Justin didn't, so it was, yeah, it made it difficult for him at times, for sure.
Did you still find there was kind of like a language barrier between you and them?
Yeah, for sure, because of just language choices, linguistic choices you make, and vernacular and slang and accent. Yeah, there's like a ton of reasons why there's a barrier there. Because interestingly, right? So the favela is kind of an exotic place if you're from the UK or somewhere else in Europe, the States, or whatever. But for the Brazilian middle classes, it's also an exotic place. You don't go there, right? You don't speak the same language. Maybe during Carnival or whatever, people get together. During the parades or whatever. But like, it's so. What I'm trying to say, I'm from Brazil originally, but that doesn't mean I'm welcome as one of the people from the neighborhood. No, I'm just as much a stranger as Justin was. I'm good with that. Anything else?
Yeah, I love the soundtrack. That's like one of my favourite parts of the film. Where did you find the music? Is there any original?
Yeah, so there's a combination. The opening track is by Caetano Veloso. Who's a big Tropicalia guy, if you're familiar with the movement and stuff. He's still a big star in Brazil. And we had to buy the song from, I forget who the publishers were, but there's a bit of Baile Funk, which was also sourced, and a couple of other tunes which were bought, but most of it was composed for the film. We just really like that opening track. Though that was like one of the requirements when trying to find money for it. No, we need money for this particular track because we just felt like it just set the scene and captured the vibe, and from thematically it was right as well. So it's a combination of music composed for the film and a few tracks that were well.
I've asked you this already, but when does this soundtrack, when is it released?
You know what? I think it's out like over the next couple of